this is the 6th boss in normal Highlands, Crora. So here he does the expel fire, expel magic fire, which puts a dot on everyone. You want to spread out for this ability because it's going to do AoE damage if you're too close together. And then he's also going to charge at a random raid member and smack on the ground and leave a void zone, so you can avoid the slam and just move out of the void zone as soon as possible. And then he's going to cast Expel Magic Arcane on a tank, and that tank needs to run out of the raid. Anyone near the tank when the dot goes off is going to die. And then here he's recharging his null barrier, so you need to have one member of the raid run in and also get the null barrier. And then these ads are going to spawn. So these ads, you need to move them into the nullification areas that he left when he slammed on the ground. So when he's recharging his barrier, he doesn't need to be tanked. And then you can, I think only magic DPS is able to get through his shield. And then here he does the Expel Magic Shadow, which is basically AoE debuff for everyone. You need to basically heal that debuff off. So once you get healed up to a certain point, then that debuff goes off. Before that debuff goes off, all heals are absorbed. And then spread out for the Expel Magic Fire. And then watch out for when he charges at you. And then run out of the null circle as soon as possible. So again, Expel Magic on a tank. So here you're going to need a tank swap because the tank that got it needs to run out. So there, I actually got hit by trample, but it's easily avoidable. Just run away from the person getting trampled, and then that person I think can also avoid it too if they run out at the last minute as well. So when he gets into this vulnerability phase, ads will spawn, and then the tanks need to pick them up, and they need to be moved into the the null circles to die. If they die outside of it, they're gonna do some AoE damage to the raid. And then a raid member needs to run in there with him to get the debuff, because later he's gonna cast these spells that and then also there's going to be Expel Magic Frost too. So it's basically a frost orb that goes around and pulses and slows, so you don't want to be near that. So for the person that goes in there with him to get the null barrier, they're going to want to run around later to absorb these little balls that land on the ground. So once that comes out, I'll mention that. But right now, basically, everyone just needs to, for this normal phase here, everyone just needs to spread out, stay spread out, because if he casts the Expel Magic Fire, you're going to do a bunch of AoE damage. And then this is where the pulsing orb is. So you just want to move away from the pulsing orb. It's going to do a slow on you. It's not going to do a whole lot of damage except for the initial part. So those yellow balls that just landed on the ground, you want to have the raid member that walked in there with him during this phase that got the null barrier shield to run around and absorb the damage from those orbs, because otherwise it's going to do a AoE raid wide damage. So when he's recharging the barrier, one member needs to run in there and also get the barrier. And then basically they need to run around and absorb those falling orbs from the sky that land, because otherwise it's going to be raid-wide damage. And then he basically just repeats these things. So Expel Fire is the AoE dot, so move away from everyone. And then Expel Magic Arcane is the tank debuff, where he needs to run out of the raid. And then he's going to charge around and trample on people and leave a null field. Those null fields need to be used when the ads come out and they die in the ad. So like right here, you can see that there's a raid member in a swirly yellow pool standing there absorbing the damage. So when an orb lands in that pool, it's gonna, so right here, when the orb lands in that pool, it's gonna do raid-wide damage like you saw right there. So whoever got the nullification barrier when he's charging, like this phase is where he's charging. So one person needs to run in there, charge the nullification barrier with him, and then when those yellow pools spawn, they need to stand in the yellow pools to absorb the orb damage, because if the orb falls onto the yellow pool, it's gonna do a raid-wide AoE damage. And then also, like right here, there's a swirly yellow pool. So whoever got the debuff with Krogath needs to walk into these pools before the orb lands into it, or it's going to do a lot of AoE damage. And then, so here you have the orbs landing. So we got most of them, but one of them I think was missed, so we took some AoE damage. I think it was like 1/3, 1/4 of everyone's HP. So depending on how your healing is, it may or may not cause a wipe. But if you definitely miss more than one orb, it could really be bad. So basically, it's just the same phases over and over again. So there's another orb landing. So whoever got the nullification barrier needs to stay into that orb. So for this case, it's probably ranged that you want to absorb it, because they need to stand there. So melee would just be standing there doing nothing. As long as they get there before the orb lands, you'll be fine. And then, so this is the phase. Someone needs to get in there with him to get the barrier, and only one person can go in. And then that person takes damage and needs to be healed. And then for these ads, the tanks need to pick them up and drag them into the void zones that were left when he did the trample, the big hammer pounding on the ground thing. And then, so you need to, I think during the vulnerability phase, when he's recharging his barrier, he's only able to be damaged by caster DPS. So melee DPS probably won't be able to hurt him. So stay spread out because of the Expel Magic Fire. For the Expel Magic Arcane, the tank needs to run out and the other tank needs to pick it up. For the Expel Magic Shadow, big heals on everyone to heal off the healing absorption shield. And then for the Expel Magic Frost, it's the Frost Orb that's around in the room, so just move away from it. So just run around the room looking for the swirly yellow things if you're the one that got the null barrier when you went into the circle with Krogath. Otherwise, just DPS as normal and stay spread out for the Expel Magic Fire. So that's pretty much it for this boss.